Sydney Watson. Sydney Watson is an Australian YouTuber with some quite conservative views. She's actually been on the channel once or twice before. She was in a Jubilee video or two, and well, she's got an interesting video here that just came out about a month ago. The truth about deadbeat mothers and the exploitation of the child support system. Obviously, I haven't watched this yet. I don't watch anything I react to live on stream, but I'm guessing I know a little bit about. I'm guessing we're about to hear some down under takes about welfare queens or something of the sort. Possibly even some ridiculous shit about how the child welfare system prejudices mothers over fathers and how terrible that is for fathers, which actually I tend to agree with that take. I tend to agree that especially here in America, I obviously don't know what it's like in Australia, but I assume it's similar. Child welfare offices will often, you basically have to be an active crackhead prostitute for a man to get custody of his children, if the woman doesn't want to give up custody. So, Ms. Watson, take it away.
Well, I hope you brought your extinguisher because this topic is a dumpster fire.
Also, let me know if the sound is low or hard to hear or anything. It shouldn't be, but, let me know, please.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to my channel. But before we dive in, today's video is sponsored by Blinkist. Hell yes. Why is this a thing? But despite how fun and interesting things can be when your family actually stays together, they can also get fairly complicated when it doesn't. And as many of you likely already know, navigating these complications can be a circus, where your ex is basically a man-eating lion, and you feel like a clown. On this channel already, we've talked about several family issues, such as mothers lying in court in order to gain custody of their children, fathers being erased, and so on. But today we're going to talk about child support, because at this point, I'm basically trying to do anything to avoid talking about the Rona. So I was perusing Twitter as I do, and I came up—
I mean, I think we can all agree on that. It's even got to the point where I don't really want to talk about it anymore. What else is there to say about Corona other than at least the American response has been tepid and insufficient, and now we're all going to die because billionaires can't stand to post lower profits this quarter.
Upon this tweet. This single father said that he had received no money whatsoever in child support, so he—
Being a single dad since July and hadn't received a penny towards my daughter's upkeep, offered to accept £100 a month, should have been $160, got told to fuck off, went down the CMS route, got this belter of a text today, checked my account, started getting paid this week. Okay.
He asked his ex for £100 a month. She refused, so he took the issue to child services. And then they went ahead and took more than double the amount that he originally asked for from her pay.
So she just completely mischaracterized this tweet. Offered to accept $100 a month. Should have been okay, I actually misread it, but still, I'm not sure where this 160 could have come from, but okay, I misread it. My mistake.
A month. She refused, so he took the issue to child services. And then they went ahead and took more than double the amount that he originally asked for from her pay in order to pay him for the children. She then texted him asking where her money had gone, and he basically was just like, I don't know. Well, she seems like a nice person. A real swell person. A real friend of the family.
Hey guys, it's Sydney from the future here. I'm actually editing this video at the moment, and I'm looking at my hair, and I don't know what this is. Who did this? Did I
That's quarantine hair. It's okay, Sydney. We don't care about your hair.
do this? It doesn't usually look like this, so I just wanted to point it out, and hopefully we can all be friends after this. I'm sorry I look this way.
Now, the father actually replied to me, explaining that his ex said that she will more than likely quit her job and go on welfare now in order to make those child support payments. Because again, she sounds like a great, great person. And basically now, all the taxpayers in England will pay for her child support. So that's fun. But since all of this, the father has actually gone ahead and deleted his tweets back to me. And now I look like a bloody liar! Well, Sydney, that must be a nice vacation from looking like an idiot. Who pooped in your cereal? Now, jokes aside, obviously we have no idea about the inner workings of this relationship. I mean, like, the father might be a crackhead. They might be raising a baby octopus. The mum might be a giant succubus. She already is, she's going on welfare. We just don't know, guys. But some people did respond to that original tweet saying that they had experienced similar things. From the court saying that the mom doesn't have to pay child support because the court doesn't chase women, to people discussing women trying to shirk their financial child responsibilities. Which brings us to the overall discussion of the child support system, which, you know, some people argue is a giant racket, but I can't really comment on that, due to a complete absence of a husband. And tiny Play-Doh people. Unless, of course, you include my dogs and the cat that occasionally comes to visit, in which case I have 4 children. Sydney, nobody but you thinks that your pets are kids. Side note though, when I do eventually get married and produce some Play-Doh humans, I don't want to go down this road. So there's that. Now, in 1986, CBS produced a documentary called The Vanishing Family.
So I'm interested to see actually where she goes with this, because this is something that men do too. Like, I'm not gonna try to stand for my gender here. Men do the exact same things that the mother did in this situation, where they get a settlement or a ruling for child support to be garnished from their wages, so they quit their job. And either they find somewhere to work under the table, or they have some other income that's off the books, or they just live on welfare, if that's an option for them. But I'm curious to see whether she's going to spin this as an issue with women or if it's an issue with the system, because this is definitely an issue with the system. This is definitely a situation where the women, where the system, where Child Protective Services here in America, CMS, probably Child Ministerial Service or whatever they're in, or Crown, whatever, I don't care. In England, they don't pursue women the way they pursue men. And this is just an inherent sexism in the system that needs to be fixed. So I'm very curious where she goes with this.
Family. Crisis in Black America. It starts with mothers telling us that they prefer to raise their children alone for a multitude of reasons, and later features a father of 6 bragging about not supporting his family financially. Now, unsurprisingly, this documentary led to outrage across America and eventually to stricter child support laws. These laws, as we're finding out, aren't necessarily fair or right in a lot of cases, and the bottom line is that the majority of people paying child support don't know how it's being used or spent. For all intents and purposes, child support accountability just doesn't exist. Because when Candace tells you that she needs an extra $500 a month, it's sort of unclear whether or not that's for the kids or her cocaine habit. Now, when it comes to the overall monetary, financial, exploitative side of this entire topic, I'm not really going to be talking about that too much in this video because there's a lot to say. And we don't have that much time. What I do want to talk about, on the other hand, are deadbeat mums and deadbeat dads. Because contrary to popular belief, both exist. And maybe we'd be able to acknowledge this a lot more if people took the time to read and learn about it. Which is why today's video is sponsored by Blinkist. Life is busy, which makes it very difficult to find the time to sit down and read. I personally used to
So I guess we didn't skip the shilling earlier, whatever. Sorry, I was actually distracted here. Let's back up a bit.
Later features a father of 6 bragging about not supporting his family financially. Now, unsurprisingly, this documentary led to outrage across America and eventually to stricter child support laws. These laws, as we're finding out, aren't necessarily fair or right in a lot of cases, and the bottom line is that the majority of people paying child support don't know how it's being used or spent. For all intents and purposes, child support accountability just doesn't exist. Because when Candace tells you that she needs an extra $500 a month, it's sort of unclear whether or not that's for the kids or her cocaine habit. Now, when it comes to the overall monetary, financial, exploitative side of this entire topic, I'm not really going to be talking about that too much in this video because there's a lot to say. And we don't have that much time. What I do want to talk about, on the other hand, are deadbeat mums and deadbeat dads. Because contrary to popular belief, both exist. And maybe we'd be able to acknowledge this a lot more if people took the time to read and learn about it. Which is why today's video is sponsored by Blinkist. Life is busy. I don't know. But if you're pressed for time or have a short attention span, like me, then I recommend using Blinkist. Housework and the voices that read to you are pretty soothing. So you know that other people actually like about Jordan Peterson and lobsters. So that's good. In addition to that, I also recommend checking out The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F and Triggered by Donald Trump Jr. because why not? The first 100 people to go to Blinkist.com/SydneyWatson will get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out, which you can cancel anytime. You'll also get 25% off if you subscribe to the full membership. So click the link in the description and make your ear holes happy. Now, when we typically think about deadbeat parents, more often than not, we think of the dad who skipped out on his kids, who patently refuses to buy Jimmy a new bike, let alone give Linda her child support. And it makes sense why. Single-parent households in America make up a quarter of all households, which actually appears to be the most in the developed world. 'Cause, like, Russia ain't having none of that. Get it together, America. If you like—
This is largely the result of societal pressure pressuring young people to get married, and then once you're married you should have kids, right? But they actually weren't as compatible as they thought, or life changes happen and they end up not working out. Which is why we should have a system in place to make sure that all children are supported regardless of the household they come from, because it shouldn't require a lifetime commitment to another human, given that people can change, to make sure that your children have a good upbringing. I mean, maybe that's something of a hot take, but I don't think marriage is that useful of a system.
Like it, then you should have put a ring and a ring on it, if you know what I mean. Single moms make up anywhere from 80 to 90% of single custodial parents in America, Australia, and the UK. The majority of them have never been married, and less than half of the time they receive child support in full, and 25% of the time they don't receive it at all. So on the surface, it's looking a bit grim there, fellas. Looking very rough. Nothing smooth about this. I'll see myself out. But as with almost all of these topics, there's much more—
She really thinks she's a lot funnier than she is.
to the story than that. Of course there are dads who disappear, who just don't want to be part of their kids' lives. But there are also fathers who have ex-girlfriends or ex-wives who use their kids as leverage and abuse child support as a whole. Women who will not let fathers see their children unless they pay their child support in full, which can be really difficult for low-income earners. On a statistical front, only 22% of fathers get to see their children more than once a week. So basically they pay child support for children they never get to see. That's fun. But more than that, some of the dads that we consider to be full-on deadbeat are actually supporting their kids in other ways. A study from 2015 that looked at 400 low-income, non-custodial dads found that almost half the fathers who were cash poor tried to contribute in other ways, providing baby products, clothing, school expenses, and food, worth an average of $60 a month per child. So it appears that many fathers genuinely want to do the right thing by their children, but simply don't have the means to do so. And the system just doesn't recognize that. It's like a landlord. It only recognizes the cash money. Another consideration here is fathers in prison. Of the 2.2 million people incarcerated in the United States, about half are parents, and at least 1 in 5 has a child support obligation. And child support is a debt that keeps increasing while they're incarcerated, which I would assume will contribute to the numbers of mothers who don't receive child support and inflate the overall perception of dads who don't support their little human beings. And just to be clear, I am not saying for a second that this is an excuse, but it helps to break down the narrative somewhat. But realistically, there are two things going on in this situation. Stop producing children you cannot pay for, and stop committing crime. This is not rocket science. You don't need to be Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius Einstein to work this.
So the issue with this argument, if you can't afford it, don't have kids, is that accidents happen even with birth control. I mean, we all know this. And sometimes people can change. This happened in my own family. My mom and dad were very happily together, and then my dad was kind of an asshole, and then he was in a motorcycle accident, and my mom went to therapy for some other stuff she'd been going through, and finally decided that she wasn't going to put up with it. So people change. Fortunately, it didn't happen until my sister and I were grown, so they didn't really have to worry about child support or that kind of thing. But the point I'm trying to make is just because not everyone has planned children. Now, ideally, we would make things like abortion and adoption easier for situations like that. What we literally have is a system where women are punished for having children when they're not in a stable relationship. And I don't think anyone should be punished for having children. I think the children are punishment enough.
This one out. You don't even need to be a life expert. A life-spurt. You just need to not be a complete piece of shifty banana. That's what she was trying to say. No, it wasn't. I was trying to say You need an exorcism. But the fact of the matter is, for every deadbeat dad, there's a deadbeat mum. And some of these mums are actually bigger deadbeats overall. Which is also conveniently something we never hear about.
Wait, what?
But the fact of the matter is, for every deadbeat dad, there's a deadbeat mum. And some of these mums are actually bigger deadbeats overall. Source?
Like, this is one of the ridiculous things about these fascists like Sydney here. She has to say that women are worse than men to justify why the system is wrong, instead of just saying, no, both men and women are generally equally bad. Men tend to be a little bit worse when it comes to childcare and taking responsibility, for the simple fact that they don't have to be there when the kid is born. And there's no data to back up, as far as I'm aware, that deadbeat men are, or deadbeat women are worse than, or deadbeat moms are worse than deadbeat dads. Please, if you have some sort of evidence for this, like the data you showed earlier about how child support is paid out and how many moms don't get it, etc., then please, by all means, share it.
Overall, which is also conveniently something we never hear about, because I guess that women are made of, like, fairy floss and rainbows, or whatever. Single fathers have increased by about 4% in the last decade. We can attribute this to several things: divorce, being widowed, the courts awarding the father primary custody, just to name a few. In fact, the majority—
Yeah, we've created, through societal pressure, more egalitarian policies with regards to who gets the parents in these, or who gets the children in these situations. It doesn't mean the mom is bad, it just means that the dad was in a better situation, especially considering that, generally speaking, men make more than women. I know that's not something you like to hear, Sydney, because you keep wanting to say that this gender pay gap is a myth, and it's very complicated. But more men are receiving custody, but it's still very weighted in favor of women.
The majority of single fathers are divorced or separated, and their ex-wives often go on to marry someone else and have more kids. But the problem is that non-custodial mothers, so the ones who are paying child support, are less likely than their male counterparts to actually pay up. Custodial fathers who are owed money are less likely than single mothers to receive any child support at all, less likely to be paid in full when they do receive money, and fewer than 40% of them have arranged a child support agreement with their ex, as opposed to mothers who have an agreement around 53% of the time. According to a Fox article I found, apparently a lot of men are afraid to ask for child support simply because they think if they're asking for child support, they won't get a chance to get custody. And honestly, like most of these topics we talk about, This doesn't shock me. So for all intents and purposes, mums suck just as much as their male counterparts. Let me guess, Sydney, you're about to ask all sarcastically if this is what equality looks like. No, that's not what I was going to say. Further than that, non-custodial mothers pay about $700 less annually than non-custodial fathers, and they still end up paying less than half the money they owe.
Again, from my understanding, most child support numbers are factored based on your income. So if, on average, men make more than women, then on average, non-custodial fathers will end up paying more than non-custodial mothers. I mean, this is how averages work. And especially given the fact that in order for the courts to side with the father in custody cases, the mother has to be demonstrably bad, whereas the father just has to be demonstrably not good, then it makes sense that non-custodial mothers would pay less. So this is a problem with the whole system, but I'm betting you're going to spin it into somehow women are shit, right?
So mums aren't...
I'm 32 and my dad still owes like $25,000 in back child support. In our case, the system straight failed. Yeah. There's a lot of cases like that. The system sucks and is broken. But it's not the fault of people are shit. We need a system that forces them to not be shit. And I'm sorry to hear that about your dad, Magmill.
Only expected to pay less, but they literally pay less. Now, there are a bunch of reasons for this, and like fathers in a similar financial situation, some of these mothers compensate by buying their children gifts or clothes or whatever. But for the rest of them, a lot of this comes down to income. And like fathers in a similar financial situation, some of these mothers compensate by buying their children.
So looking at this graph, it looks like slightly more fathers provide... fathers are a little more likely to provide non-monetary support, non-cash support. But again, we have to look at income disparities and all those kind of good shit.
Gifts or clothes or whatever. But for the rest of them, a lot of this comes down to income. Mothers, for example, are more likely to be on government benefits, unemployed, or have part-time work. Studies show the average income for non-custodial mums is only $15,000 a year, whereas non-custodial dads average about $40,000 a year. Not that I think that this is an excuse, because fathers are not only expected to make their child support payments in full, but they're also expected to have a full-time job, regardless if they have their children or not. And on top of that, fathers are statistically way less likely to be on government benefits at all. So I really can't seem to understand why we hold dads to one standard and moms to another. I mean, you guys know for the most part, I do try to be impartial when presenting information, and believe me, I am trying. But I just really don't understand why moms often get a free pass. It blows my mind. Honestly, the more I read about this topic, the more that...
The reason why mothers get a free pass is because our system is predicated on the belief that women are designed to be mothers. And we all know that's definitely not the case. There are definitely some women who should not be mothers, and some men who should not be fathers. But there's such societal pressure that it's okay. And moreover, there's not a whole lot to hold people responsible for being irresponsible and having a bunch of kids and not taking responsibility for them. There are ways around having their wages garnished, getting paid under the table, less than legal sources of income, etc., etc. But, so this is an issue where the system is broken. This is not a personal failing of any individual. Again, some people are shit. Some people will be terrible. But they basically get to take advantage of a broken system. So if you're here condemning bad people for taking advantage of a broken system, but you're not going to talk about the way the system is broken, then you're doing a disservice.
That I feel like we make excuses for mums where we wouldn't make those same excuses for dads. For example, we come down on low-income dads like a ton of bricks, so why don't we do the same thing for low-income mums? And again, I don't think for a second that being a single parent is easy, but if we know and think that it's not easy for mums, then why do we think it's easy for dads? I'm confused. One of the main issues here is that the child support system is completely outdated, and there are so many ongoing issues with it that I haven't even scratched the surface of that in this video. If the tweet we discussed in the beginning of this video
I don't know anyone who thinks that being a single parent is easy regardless of gender. Granted, I know a few single parents, so that might be the cause of that. But being a single parent is hard. Everyone knows that. I don't know anyone who thinks that being a single parent, being a single father is easier than being a single mother. That seems like I've literally never heard that before this video. Not in any real serious way. But good on her for mentioning that the system is outdated. It is. And that's not the only issue with it, but that is definitely an issue.
Is anything to go by, then there are plenty of mothers out there who aren't interested in taking responsibility for and caring for their kids. And yet, for whatever reason, we just don't seem interested in talking about that. It's honestly really disappointing to me that we keep building these systems that ultimately allow for people to be taken advantage of and mass exploitation because people are too fearful to fight for their
True, Magmill.
kids or ask for child support, lest their kids be taken away entirely. I'm not even in this situation with tiny pudding people, and I know this is not okay. At least to me, it shouldn't matter whether or not you're a mom or a dad, whether you're rich or not, provided that your ex is not exploiting you and taking advantage of you, you should absolutely be meeting your childcare obligations. If you're gonna bring a kid into the world, regardless of how you feel towards your ex or whatever, you really need to take care of it. It's that simple. Now, before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder that you can download Blinkist using the link in the—
Okay, she's into the shilling portion. That was a little more balanced than I thought it would be. Still very, woman-hating, as I kind of expected. Again, the issue is not that men are shit or that women are shit. The issue is that the system is shit and allows shit people to take advantage of a shit, broken system. Like, seriously. It's not... If we start blaming individuals for failings of a system, then we stop trying to fix the system and start trying to fix individuals. That is why, while I will not stand up here and defend deadbeat parents of any gender, or no gender, I will stand up here and say that defending the system, as you kind of inherently did here, except for the last minute and a half where you said, the system is outdated. The system is more than outdated. It is broken, it is misandrist, and in many cases, it's toothless. So I just kind of want to check out the comments here real quick. This is why, as a family law attorney, I take dozens of cases of your child support fraud and father's rights abuses pro bono. Our firm is also spearheading a father's rights bill in Washington state where men every day are denied access to their own children in family court. Yeah, this again is a major issue with the system. And I actually support this person, you know, taking on these cases pro bono, because that is one good way to help right the system. Now, this is also something that could be rife for abuse, but, you know, I'd rather someone trying to do something good and it be abused than something good never happening because someone abused it. The reason why women get passes is because there is such a thing as women's privilege. Let's see. A literal system that favors women over men, and the feminists don't think such a thing exists. Ha ha ha. This is part of the reason why many progressives don't refer to themselves as feminists, because feminists implies that you are just looking out for women's rights, and modern feminists are looking to create equity and parity across the board. And if that means advocating for men as well, then that is a good thing. Women have a lot lighter time getting the support cut down if they can't afford it. No talk of deadbeat there or prison. Probably. Men made the laws, but women can't have kids without men, so I don't see why they get favoritism. Most cases I know, including mine, it's a woman that scams the system. The guy is... Yeah, this is someone... The system is broken. But people... This is why a lot of people just go off anecdotes and don't use data, and why she used data only when it supported her argument and sparingly elsewhere. Like, this is really common. So pay attention to the arguments and make sure you can spot when they're using anecdotes. To her credit, she didn't use more than the one anecdote, but she definitely tried to imply that that one anecdote at the beginning of the video was some sort of universally applicable data point. And it's just not. Sorry. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.